Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that little break, but we had a bit of a technical glitch here. We should be all back up and running now. So next up on our agenda is Manager Newton.
Thank you, Your Worship. In front of you today is a request for you to review a policy known as the body-worn camera policy. This is new for enforcement services. Enforcement services is equipped with, enforcement service equipped municipalities are continuously coming into contact with more aggressive individuals. As a result of false complaints have been made towards enforcement officers throughout Canada and the United States for actions not becoming of officers. More agencies are implementing body-worn cameras for their officers to ensure that officers are conducting themselves in a professional manner at all times and eliminating lengthy investigations or complaints from members of the public. As per the Alberta Community Peace Officer Manual, a policy needs to be implemented before introducing it to an officer's kit. This policy will also include our bylaw enforcement officer for the town. Your options before you today, sir, is the Town Council approve the policy, Town Council rejects the policy and provides administration with additional information, or that the Town Council rejects the policy.
Okay, so those are our options, and if we were, the Town Council was to approve the policy, what would that mean?
That means we'll implement the policy at the next available council date, and then we'll be starting to wear body-worn cameras for the public, sir.
Do we have these cameras already?
Yes, we do. We do have, we have them. They were a last-minute budget item from last year's budget. No additional cost to the town. It was a part of the, in our budget that we had some extra money over that we were able to purchase them.
So we have them,
Yes, Your Worship.
but we don't wear them because we have no policy.
That's correct.
Okay, Councillor Barry, do you would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I believe that the wearing the body cameras would be a good idea. Definitely safeguards the officers as well as the public.
Councillor Lemko.
I agree with Councillor Barry. I think it's very important in today's day that we have protection for both the citizen and the officers required to work in our streets.
Okay, Councillor Bullock, sorry.
I think it's a good idea as well, so it just keeps everything out and open. I read in the policy here that they'll have the option to turn it on and off whenever they feel, or?
The discretion will remain with the officer itself. It does make some people uncomfortable, but for the most part, we would advise that the individual that they are under recording, we would prefer if we don't turn it off, it's just for a protection between yourself and ourselves, right? Some people get very offended by anything nowadays, right? So it is an option, but they'll be directed to use it in the standards that are set out in the policy.
Councillor Riddick.
Thank you very much for preparing this, Manager Newton. I just wanted to maybe make or ask you if you could share some of the guidelines around freedom of information and protection of privacy with regards to keeping the recordings and disposing of them in a certain time frame. Just because if anybody's watching, they won't be able to necessarily make their way through the policy. So I'm just wondering if you could share that with the public.
Yes, Councillor, through the chair, I would actually refer that to our FORT coordinator, if I may, please. We do have the Records Management Retention Bylaw 05-2023 and where the outcome comes. But we would keep that for under the bylaw and how long we would need to keep that if I'm missing anything to the FOIP coordinator.
So yes, the retention for these videos or audio recordings would be outlined under Section 9 of the Records Retention Schedule. For bylaw enforcement, 9.1.1 and 9.1.2 would stipulate that we would keep these recordings for either the current year plus 3 years or the current year plus 5 years.
Okay, so that's a bylaw of ours?
Yes, that's the record and retention bylaw.
Is anybody taking a look at what the Constitution of this country says we're allowed to do with somebody's information like this? because I would imagine that would supersede any bylaw of ours. So every individual in this country is protected under the Constitution for privacy. So did we take that into account when we put that number? Okay, I can see Leslie going yes. She's our constitutional expert, and I appreciate that. So as long as we've considered that,
Yes, our record retention bylaw has, was vetted by legal, so we're within the rights that are, given to the municipality for that, so,
we are respecting the rights of every individual
yes.
in our municipality. Okay, thank you.
One last question. Just looking at this and considering how much footage there would be, do we then anticipate that there would be additional cost to that retention?
Currently, right now, we do run all of our files are stored electronically on servers, and we do have the server capability at this time, and that is in the future when we when we replace servers, that is something we will take into consideration when we look at what we need for storage.
Okay, so I agree that I think it's a good policy, but I don't think that our officers should have the ability to video at their convenience when they feel it's important to them. What if we are on the wrong side and we decide to turn ours off, and when that individual comes back and says, well, this is what your officer said, this is how I was treated, but he turned his camera off, or she turned, that officer turned their camera off. So I think we need to be fair to both sides. And I think that if we're gonna use it, we'll turn it on all the time, not when we pick and choose, because it would be very easily to turn it off if we were in the wrong.
Yes, Your Worship. So under 8.2, we do have the exceptions of recording. We can remove section 8.1 where ultimately the discretion is of the officer, and we'll go with those guidelines in 8.2 of the policy.
Does anybody else see that as a problem when we get to decide when we're turning it on or off? Go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. I do if it's used in that context. I would wonder what the RCMP does. If they leave theirs on all the time, if it's a graphic scene, is it able to be turned off if somebody's in a compromised position or anything like that? I don't know if there's some provisions around that.
With regards to the RCMP, they more follow under the criminal code. I couldn't expect from them. This is more or less more of an officer conduct thing and for protection than it is for evidence collection later on down the road as well. And not every RCMP member carries cameras at this time yet throughout Canada.
Councillor Bullock and then Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I agree with your worship there about having the camera on all the time if they're gonna be wearing it when they're at work, so. Yeah, I think we just relook at that and clean that end up a bit, and, cause if we're gonna have it on and then, like the mayor said, that, if we turn it off and let's say they have some camera rolling or something, then we'd have nothing to go back on.
Councillor Wawa first and then you, Councillor Bird.
Yeah, and again, I do support this. I think it is a good idea in some ways. It would certainly help out. I'm just trying to wrap my brain on those little things as well. But also, it's even difficult. Like, I'd like to know what is the requirements based upon what somebody says. Because even under 8.2, where an individual requests the recording be stopped. Well, if we can just say that they have to turn it off if it's requested, if anybody's doing anything, they're just going to say turn it off. So again, I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that it helps us to be able to say, well, look, before they did that, they say requested it to be turned off. But it would just be kind of interesting to know what maybe some other ones said or the thoughts around it. Because if we are getting to a spot where just someone gets to say turn it off, it may not end up helping us in the long run as much as we wanted.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Perry.
Your Worship. Yeah, I was
reading
just
something else.
looking at it from the other side. Does the officer have the discretion when he's just driving down the street to turn the camera off? Is there, I mean, like if we're too black and white on, it must be on all the time, there's gonna be a lot of footage of just nothing.
No, yeah.
It's only, is the wording there or is the intent there that it's only turned on when approaching an individual?
Yeah, we can definitely look at the verbiage and then make sure that's in there properly if needed. And just to ensure that when we're dealing with a public concern or members of the public, that the camera will be turned on.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if they still have to have the right to turn the camera off at some point in time.
Well, I don't know if I'm understanding this. So if we are engaged with a citizen through bylaw or Highway Traffic Act, if they asked us to turn off, the officer to turn off their body worn camera, we would have to do it?
It would be reiterated to them that it's for the protection of both individuals.
Yeah.
But it could be a de-escalating tool as well, right? Some people just don't want to be on camera, right? As well, and I mean that happens on a regular basis. Our vehicle recordings are basically the individual with the recording of the vehicle, right? If we're doing a traffic stop, you see the vehicle, you don't necessarily see the individual, you'll just hear their voice. I can't give you examples in my career that I've dealt with people getting upset about being recorded because I've never had that people getting upset. We vetted our policy basically the same as this as well, and we've never had anybody ask us to turn off our camera.
So if they had the ability to do that, I would ask you to turn your camera off before I verbally abused you or took a swing at you. There would negate the reason for wearing the camera.
That's right. Yeah, you
And
bet.
if we have the ability that when we confront a citizen regarding whatever reason, and we pick and choose when we're going to turn it on, it needs to be fair both ways. So if we're going to walk up to somebody or we're going to engage a citizen, I think we should tell them that it's on and turn it on and turn it off when we're done. I just think that's fair for both sides.
Absolutely.
But we can't pick and choose when we're going to turn it on just to protect ourselves. We need to have both sides being represented through the video. I think that's what it's for. Does anybody disagree with that? Like, I don't think you should turn it off if somebody asks you to turn it off, because that's what they would ask before they assaulted you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Barry. Oh, I didn't see your hand up. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
No problem, I did it very sneakily. Have we looked at what other municipalities are doing with body-worn cameras, if others have it? What rules do they follow, which might help us guide us in how we're gonna.
Yeah, we pulled two municipalities. The policies are pretty much identical on both sides, and we adapted to theirs as well. That was vetted a few times. It was actually brought up in FOIP courses that our FOIP coordinator has taken about those two specific municipalities.
So ours matches theirs.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. I still think we need to change some things around. Again, I don't think we should turn it off if asked or turn it off if we feel like it, but obviously, as Councillor Bray said, turning it off when you're done for the day or just driving around before you're in with another individual, then, but I think some more in-depth look at this might help ease the concerns.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As stated, we can take out the entire section of exceptions to recording and just put shall record while dealing with individuals in the public.
I think there's some discretion on part of the officer. I mean, if you're walking up to somebody and you know that it's like you're not going to be in a big confrontational situation. I mean, all I wanted to represent is that it's fair to the individual as well. We don't pick and choose when we're going to record somebody because we don't know what our behavior is going to be neither. So if you can change that and send it out to us, what you think would look.
If I could, I want to correct myself.
Well, I was gonna do
Section
it, but you
7.
go ahead.
In 7.0, it does outline how the camera is to be powered on when they go on duty and ready for activation. And then it refers to a number of instances as to when it is to be activated and continue to record during the duration of the operation. So they do have the use areas spelled out. It's only the discretion to be able to turn it off, and or if they were asked to be turned it off. So I think that Section 7 does fairly clearly identify how it's to be used. It's just when we get down to exceptions of recording in point 8 that we're questioning when it can be turned off. So I think that is, I had forgotten about Section 7 when I first asked my question. Thank you.
Okay. So if we say 8 point, what are you looking at, 8 point, just 8 is when somebody asks to have you turn it off, that
I guess the one area here that in society today, 8.2.2, respecting the wishes of persons expressing sensitivities connected with culture or faith that would prohibit recording. We may have to consider that. I'm not certain. There are maybe some points in time when we're not respecting an individual if the recording is still on against their wishes. But certainly, if it's confrontation, I don't think the officer should agree to turning it off.
Your Worship, if it is all right with council, we will go back, we will do a little research on the exceptions to the recording. There are some things in there we, like getting further down into 8.4 and everything like that, where we need, there may be reasons for shutting the camera off.
Right,
But
yeah.
we will do a little bit more research and we will look into this a little more in depth, and we will have something ready for council meeting on Monday. So you guys will see it Friday and have an opportunity to read through it,
okay.
if that'll work.
Okay, is everybody good with that?
Okay, just one.
Oh, sorry, did you have your hand up?
No, I just
Okay.
did this right now. I was just thinking, and I guess one of the parts to maybe check is what the differentiation is between recording and something being considered public. Because obviously it makes a difference whether we're displaying it somewhere else or what its usage is. So that might be where it is. Because I'm thinking like a place like Tim Hortons or other places, there's a lot of businesses that have a recording and nobody gets to choose whether the recording's on and off. So if we can find that out, it would be probably the clearest path, right?
Okay.
I don't know for what culture or religious reason somebody would choose not to be recorded, but maybe they belong to a witch's outfit or something like that.
Take your photo, it takes your phone.
Yeah,
No, seriously.
I know. But I'm just saying that no matter what we do moving forward, that we don't have the ability to turn it off in situations that we would feel would be in our favor. So, like reading this, and again, what the comments, like if you walk into any business today, you're being recorded, and there's nothing you can do about it. But peace officers and police officers are going to this form of capturing the moment, what was said and what happened, for reason. And we know today that conflict is easy. A lot of people just seek conflict. So it's protecting both sides. And that's, no matter what we do, we need to represent that we're protecting both. So I don't know, there's a lot of changes need to be made in what's in here.
Like I said, we'll revisit this, section 8, and we'll compare it to some existing policies for some of the larger centers, and we'll see what their legal has come up with as well.
Okay, and you'll say we'll have this by Friday?
We'll have this, we will shoot to have this ready for the council meeting on Monday, which means that council will have this on the agenda on Friday, and you'll have an opportunity to go through it over the weekend.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Manager Newton. Next up, Community Engagement and Economic Development Manager, Jamison Brown.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Today's topic in regard to this memo to council pertains to the Pesica Park lighting for Green Shirt Day. The town of Vegreville has received a request via email, and the email is attached to your agenda packages, to have the Pesica lit green on April 7th, 2024, commemorating Green Shirt Day. Green Shirt Day is intended to honor, remember, and recognize the victims and families of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash on April 6, 2018, as well as to pay tribute to Logan Boulay, a Broncos player who passed away on April 7, 2018, from injuries sustained in the crash, but who left a legacy through his posthumous organ donation. The request to have the Pesica lit green was submitted by Jan Clemis, a retired teacher from Tabor, Alberta, who has personally experienced the gift of organ donation, having received a kidney from her son in 2018. Upon receiving the request, the Community Engagement and Economic Development Department dialogued with the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Department and have determined that both the lights that shine directly onto the Pesica as well as the lights in the trees behind the Pesica can be changed to green. Should Council approve the request, these lights would be changed to green on Friday, April 5th through to Sunday, April 7th. There are no financial implications that would come along with this. And should Council approve the request in terms of the communication strategy, we would obviously correspond with Jan Clemis via email to notify her of the decision, as well as we'd post publicly on our website and social media channels why the lights have been turned green. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
Well, I think this is actually a pretty good heartfelt moment, and organ donation is important. I'm signed as an organ donor myself, so I could support something like this. I just think it's important to remember that, and remember that someone's death, unfortunately, could be saving someone else's life with the organ, and it just brings attention to it all and the importance of it. So that's how I feel about it.
Councillor Lemko.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice gesture on our part to support the letter or the email. I too am an organ donor, but I don't think there's many organs left that anybody would want.
Go ahead, Councillor Warba.
Yeah, I would concur that I'm happy to see us take part in this. I know our community has taken part in various ways in the past when they've had some other initiatives, including more onto the Broncos side of leaving sticks outside on the doorsteps and that. So this is, I think, a good initiative. I as well have a sister who did a double lung transplant. So this is a big moment, and maybe if we do go ahead with it, we could send a little suggestion as we're advertising a little bit, that if people also want to during that time display green on their homes. I know a number of our houses have Gemini or similar lighting that allows them that option, so we could maybe send that out too.
Okay, well, I think the fact that we have the ability to do this, and it really doesn't take a lot of effort to do it, I think it's fine. I think that we could advertise it on our social media and maybe just remind people how easy it is to sign up for the organ donor policy. And
Absolutely. We will forge ahead with a bit of a public education campaign, and thank you very much for your time.
thank you. Next up, Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. What I have here is a memo to restrictive covenant removal to the Lefebvre property, Block 3, Plan 104219991. The proposal to have the town council remove the restrictive covenant that was made on September 27th, 2006 on the same plot and plan number. On background, on September 27th, 2006, the town of Vegreville placed a restrictive covenant on residential lots that were purchased from the town of Vegreville with purpose of ensuring that the lands are developed as a residential subdivision in a well-planned and structured manner of high standards in appearance. As all development guidelines have been met over the past 18 years, which I actually did 16 years ago, we are requesting council to acknowledge the restrictive covenant is no longer required and can be wholly discharged.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lemko.
Yes, Your Worship. The restricted covenant, can you just explain what the purpose of that would have been, just so I have a better understanding?
Absolutely. It was the town's property that they owned, so they became the developer when they took the properties and got them into 4 approximately 1 acre parcels. And being the developer, then by putting a restrictive covenant on, could put some guidelines on to ensure the neighborhood is what they wanted it to be. So some of the things were what council is already very used to: 18 months to start construction and get it rolling, 30 months to finish construction. The size, there's a minimum size for the footprint of the house, excluding the attached garage, of 1,350 square feet. They wanted some certain setbacks that were not too uncommon, maximum site coverage of 37%. Then they got into some details that they wanted at least 3 6-foot tall trees in the front yard. They were putting some things down as how they saw the neighborhood should look before they would approve the development. So, and now that we've met the requirements, like I said, we met them some time ago, but going through some information, it's time to clean up something from a long time ago. So the more you can remove off your title, the better. And I'd like this removed. And this is how it is done because council put it on, council has taken it off.
So we'll see this on Monday night.
You will see this Monday night.
Excellent.
You can go by, drive by my house and count 3 trees because it's what's in front.
Maybe you should be the guy removing this covenant. You're fine. Any questions? Everybody knows where this property is, right? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, corporate services, nope, CAO Ling.
Okay, next up, we have an FCM draft resolution and letter. And if Councillor Rudick is still available, there she is. I will refer this to you.
Okay, well, just to let, or just as a recap, what we've done as FCM board is talk about the importance of the reinvestment in infrastructure funding. And the last little while, we've really ramped up our advocacy efforts with all federal ministers and talked about the importance of the reinvestment in all streams of infrastructure funding. Most important one, or the most commonly known and perhaps our favorite, is the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly known as the gas tax. And one of the reasons that it has been so widely appreciated and utilized by municipalities of every size from corner to corner in the country is because it's easy to use, it's easy to report, and it's easily accessible. So we were very disappointed to hear, which is contrary to the conversation that we had in November with our advocacy efforts, that the federal government is considering not renewing any of these streams of infrastructure funding in the way that we'd previously known them to be negotiated. And further to that, we want to ramp up the pressure. So we've been successful. The budget was supposed to come out in March. It's been delayed till the middle of April. And that's due partially to the fact that they're getting pushback from MPs who are hearing from their residents and municipalities from across the country that not only is this infrastructure funding vital, it is core to our budget. And just would like to be able to be one of the voices that are added to the list. We have a great relationship with our MP, but it's important to be able to have our concerns written down, registered, and hopefully educate our public a little bit too about the importance of our infrastructure funding in terms of how we develop our budget and how important it is for us to be able to do the long range planning that we require that funding.
Any questions?
So what we have here is a resolution template put out by FCM and a template for a letter to our MP. And if council is in favor of going ahead with this resolution and the writing of the letter, we will bring the resolution down to council on Monday for your adoption, and then we will send it off to our MP and include the resolution in with the letter.
Okay. I don't think anybody's against this.
No.
Okay, well, we'll see you on Monday.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rudick.
Thank you.
Next up, Village of Manville request of a seconder on Alberta Muni's resolution.
Yes, okay. The Village of Manville has asked for a seconder on their Alberta municipalities resolution declining fire department services across Alberta. The town of they've been asking if town council would support seconding the proposed resolution that would go to the AB Munis Convention in the fall. In 2024, Alberta municipalities introduced changes to their resolution process requiring resolutions to be represented by two of the following categories, less than 2,500 population, between 2,500 and 10,000 population, or greater than 10,000 population. As Manville meets the requirements of less than 2,500 population, council support will validate the resolution and allow it to be considered as the town of Vegreville falls within the 2,500 to 10,000 population. The resolution, which is attached, has been vetted by Alberta municipalities, and if council agrees in seconding, it will go forward as it's presented here. If council is in agreement to second the resolution, a request for council decision will be placed on the next council meeting on Monday, March 22nd, and the adopted motion will be sent to the Village of Manville for the resolution submission. The resolution will have to be submitted before the May 31st deadline. I'll just go through I'll go through the whereas and the therefore of the resolution. So it's whereas the stated declining fire department services affecting small communities across Alberta is detrimental to all Albertans living or visiting outside large urban centers, and whereas provincial fire services training program funding increases are necessary for small community firefighting training, and whereas Canada Revenue Agency volunteer firefighter tax credit should be increased from $3,000 to $10,000, and the CRA's definition of a volunteer firefighter should be modernized, and consideration be given for a business tax credit for businesses that employ volunteer firefighters. And whereas the needs for firefighter underwriting survey insurance to review their mandated equipment replacement parameters to accommodate small community firefighting apparatus and equipment is necessary to extend the frontline status from 15 years to 20 years or beyond. And whereas the federal government former Joint Emergency Preparedness Program for fire/emergency training and equipment should be modernized and reinstated, and therefore be it resolved that Alberta municipalities advocate to the Government of Alberta to collaborate with the federal government and Fire Underwriters Survey for the purpose of assisting municipalities to retain fire services by recruiting firefighters and addressing the declining fire department services affecting small communities across Alberta.
Okay. So, by doing so and seconding this resolution and having it in on time, so this resolution will be on the floor at Alberta Munis come this fall.
Yes.
And if we go ahead and be the seconder, I think that former Fire Chief Councillor Lemko would speak on behalf of the seconding at the resolution passing at the Alberta Munis. You only have 2 minutes, I do believe, but you could stand there and tell the rest of municipalities in Alberta why this is important. Okay, so if everybody's for this, then we'll bring it to Monday's meeting and we'll pass a motion and let Manville know that we'll support them on this resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and nice that Councillor Lemke would volunteer like that too. Okay, next up, Friends of A.L. Horton Playground discussion. I knew we were gonna get there.
Yes, so on February 20th, 2024, Friends of A.L. Horton Society members and A.L. Horton principal Carrie, I'm going to butcher her last name, Zenny, presented to council in the legislative committee meeting. President Aaron Robert explained that they are looking to raise $750,000 to replace 3 playgrounds at A.L. Horton Elementary School. Friends of A.L. Horton have been fundraising since 2021. Their goal is to raise $125,000 by May 1st, 2024, so the committee may apply for matching grants to replace playground number 1. Given that council is connected to multiple people and organizations, A.L. Horton is looking to town council as a hub of support. When the Friends of A.L. Horton presented to council in 2022, council advised the committee that they were limited supports the town could provide. A loan from the town to the Friends of A.L. Horton Society was suggested, but a loan is in contravention of the Elk Island Public School fundraising guidelines. Historically, town council has not committed funding to school playgrounds. In 2011, the town of Vegreville donated equipment and manpower in kind to assist A.L. Horton in the revitalization of the school playgrounds. As the Friends of A.L. Horton's deadline is May 1st, as the Friends of A.L. Horton's deadline of May 1st is approaching, administration is requesting guidance onto what support, if any, town council is willing to commit to the Friends of A.L. Horton Society.
Right, thank you, Sandra. Any comments? Well, I'll start then. We know that when we set precedents with money, then there will be a lineup out the door, and we all know how tight our budget is right now. And our main focus has been this year is to drive some the economic situation in town and try to set us up to have more young children in our community. But we also know that once we start down this path of giving out cash donations to support things, that there's no turning back. In the past and in the future, we've helped a lot of different organizations with in-kind work through equipment and people power from the town. Myself, I don't know if we should stray from that policy right now or in the future, but is there anybody that has different thoughts? Go ahead, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. I would agree. It is a slippery slope, setting precedents, and like you said, there's people will be coming out of the woodwork. So it's unfortunate, and the option of having a loan is kind of hands are tied there, which that would have been something that's definitely viable if it had been a different circumstance. But the utilization of equipment or time in kind, to remove or help put up the new equipment is always there. And I know that they're still reaching out to businesses around town and looking for donations and help too. So hopefully they can get to their threshold. And if not, there's other grants as well that they can apply for. And they may have enough with help in kind to get some of this stuff done too. So best of luck to them. And hopefully they can reach out if they wish to use some of the equipment or in kind work that we can provide.
Councillor Rudick.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to see this letter here. I was wondering when we would finish the conversation in public. I guess the only thing that I would maybe just want to be clear on is there are only 2 schools that are elementary schools that would be requesting this type of funding support. And at this time, I understand the slippery slope of providing funding in this format and the tight nature of our budget, but I would consider it part of our role as a convener in the community of volunteer groups and leadership that we hold as the town of Vegreville to continue to provide that support that we can in terms of connecting A.L. Horton, or if it was the other school as well, to be able to make sure that we provide whatever we can in terms of gifts in kind. And the reference back in 2011, we did have at that time an ability to be able to prepare the groundwork and do the kind of work that we've done for other nonprofit organizations. And I would hope that congruent to the goals that we have of ensuring that we have a young, vibrant working population for our business and industry in the community, that we also, as you stated, understand the importance of making sure that we support the schools. So again, whatever we can do to be helpful. I would say there's only 2 instances where we would be asked in this vein, so it's not going to be as widespread and pervasive, perhaps, as other asks might be, but that we use our resources as best we can in the way that we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So I understand that through Elk Island Public School Board, they can't accept a loan. And we've done that for other projects within the community and other nonprofits. And again, I think that we get back to them and let them know that how we can support this project of theirs is through some in-kind services and through equipment and labor or whatever else we can do to support it. But I don't see anybody. I know. Go ahead, Councillor Rob.
Well, I was taking a moment to just kind of think some of the logistics of it through, and I understand, I think we are in the right spot at that. If we are looking at playgrounds, we would be looking at all our inventory, including our own, and having to then assess, how much we have to give over a time frame, which is why maybe it doesn't work to give a physical cash donation. However, there is a lot of value to the in-kind work. It's not just helping them with it, but a lot of grants actually allow you to use your in-kind work as a value that can actually be used, so it can actually still assist in getting additional funds. So I would think that we can maybe, for sure, I would agree with Councillor Rudick, being able to help at the same level for some of the work in that way, more in kind, but also for them as they're going ahead and letting us know where they're at, we could potentially, assist with support letters, some additional information with grants, connect them with, if they are looking at some special sides, to even connect with us, and we can pass the message on to our federal representatives as well, because maybe there's accessible portions and whatnot. So I think there's a lot we could do that could actually end up being worth a good value for them.
So I think that's one avenue we could look at. If we look at a monetary value of what the in-kind services we could offer, and that may go to their total when they're looking for matching type grants. So if we could get back to them and find out what site prep or demolition may be needed, and then we go to Director LaFave's department and sort of see what, hourly rate and that equipment plus the labor, and then if they could take that and put it in on their money raised side, because they're going to need that service anyway, then that may go a long ways to raising on the matching grant side. So
Yeah, when we'll get back to them this week, and I'll make sure to include that so we can get a good idea of what they would be looking at from us for in-kind, and we'll get a price for them.
okay. Thank you. Next up, we have a letter from the Honorable Tanya Fur, Minister of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women regarding the museum deassessing. This is for me, I guess, okay?
I could.
That's fine, I don't mind. Dear Mayor McPhee, my colleague, the Honorable Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs, shared your February 7th, 2024 request for assistance in the deassessing the collection of the now dissolved Vegreville Regional Museum. As the Minister of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women that is responsible for Alberta's culture and heritage sites, I am pleased to respond. Community museums are an important way for Albertans to preserve the past and share our histories and stories with visitors. The closure of the Vegreville Regional Museum is, I'm sure, felt in the community. The government of Alberta does not regulate the collection management practices of private and municipal museums in Alberta. The town of Vegreville has the authority to deassession the collection of the Vegreville Regional Museum as it sees fit. I recommend that you contact the Alberta Museums Association for guidance on appropriate means of deassessing and disposal process. the Alberta Museums Association can be contacted directly at. And there we go, and she CC'd Minister Rick McIver and our MLA Jackie Armstrong Hominick. So we know where we're at on this now, and we will put a game plan together at our workshop coming up. And I would imagine Councillor Barry would have something he'd like to add.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I believe that Minister Fair's response clearly indicates that the previous policy on deaccessioning that the government had is no longer government policy. So I believe that she is clearly given the exception and clearance for the town to move forward with full authority to deaccession as it sees fit. And I would echo your comment just now that we can now put together our own deaccession policy and move forward.
So, one thing that concerns me is some of the people that have contacted me about some family items that were displayed or given, and about where they're going to end up and stuff like that. So, we do have a list of who donated what and who received tax credits or tax exemptions for some of the artifacts and stuff. I think we should maybe advertise for 2 weeks about if your family or yourself has given something to the museum that is on the list to be deaccessioned, then they could put something in writing. A lot of people I've talked to have asked about certain things. Could they go to this museum, or could they go someplace else? And not a lot of people want to take them home with them again. But I do believe that we give a bit of a time period to the community, that we gave, if there's something that is on the list, because I want everybody to know that not everything is going away. We are not taking everything out of there. There is a process that Councillor Barry has sort of laid out for us that we're going to step through, but also the town itself. There's a lot of artifacts there that are very important to this region and to this community. And we plan on keeping them and displaying them as we build facilities and find room for them. Even the location of the old museum and what it will become will be hosting some important artifacts that are important here. And as we build new facilities at the VIC, the Visitor Information, we would like to be able to keep some of those things to display as well. So I hope that council will agree that advertising to get some feedback about some things that are important to people is important. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll agree to that. I think the important thing is for us to be contacted so that we can actually take a look at the items they're referring to see how they were received and whether they are significant to be kept in our collection. I think that Minister Fair's message to us here now will actually give us some latitude in some of the different items and et cetera that could probably be returned to family members. And that was something that was not permitted until we received this permission from the minister. So I think that this will give us an opportunity to go through and take a look primarily as to the items that we feel are important to maintain in a museum and those items that could be returned or provided to other museums. So I think that's something that we need to be able to sit down and have a more thorough discussion of now, because, as I say, the letter from the minister here has now given us an avenue that we didn't have previously.
Correct. Councillor Warba.
So my comment was very much in line with what Councillor Barry had said, and it's just important. I've talked to a lot of people who've called me as well about items, and I think just the important thing is that there's never a time where we weren't wanting to or wanting to be to respond to the fact that somebody had some attachment. It was that we had certain regulations in front of us that were handcuffing us, and that's why things were taking the amount of time they were, and we couldn't go. So I appreciate this update and ability to now look at other processes. I think you're absolutely right that we can open it up for somebody to be able to reach out and request, and that allows us to go back and look how we receive them and what there is. I think it's exciting. I've had a conversation with 2 or 3 different people that talked about some future possibilities, that heard us speak about, you know, potential display cases, and they actually seemed quite excited and positive about that, positive about the thought of being able to expand items that are relevant to the right buildings, relevant to our area. And I actually think there's a way we could expand and have some really beautiful things where we are able to say this is our heritage of the past, this is what brought us here or is significant to Vegreville's past, and maybe there's ways to incorporate in the future additional display cases to say this is maybe where we came from and what the culture was and what is our culture today, and it may be very much a very inclusive opportunity in the future for other cultures that are now here in Vegreville that maybe aren't our traditional to have a display area alongside some of the items that were considered like a past, present, and future type of thing. So I think this is exciting. It feels like it's a long time coming, and I appreciate getting some direction from the minister and some assistance because they were making it a little hard prior. So I'm excited, and I agree 100% about giving an opportunity to the public to give us some feedback.
Councillor Riddick, did you have something?
I did. No, sorry. I have had contact from 3 different organizations, not individuals, that are interested in potentially taking some of those items. So just for family and for our staff, I have forwarded the contact information, but the Ukrainian Village, as well as Emil Shapka from the Ukrainian Pioneer Museum in St. Paul, who did the presentation with the memorial statue that was a couple meetings ago, as well as the Jewish Archives and Historical Society of Edmonton and Northern Alberta have each reached out to us or reached out to me with interest about our collection. And so if there's a way to be able to let families know that might be interested in having those items preserved, but not necessarily in their own home, so that they can continue to be shared with the public, whether it's through these 3 different entities or our own future version of collection sharing, I think that would be important too. So I've shared that with our staff, but I just wanted to make sure that council was also aware that there's been some interest from outside of Vegreville. And if you'll remember too, when we had Senator Simons come and visit, one of the pieces that he was very interested in, not just talking to council and having a great meal and visiting the egg, but also researching her family history as one of the original Jewish families in Alberta that settled in Vegreville and is in our historical book. So that's just a little piece that I think we should make sure that we have on record for our staff as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. I have also been contacted by a number of different groups, and I have to now get back to some of them with added information. I do have access to the entire array of items that are there, the entire computer access to it. So I can search and find these items that people are wanting information on, and I could track by keeping a list of all of those contacts, and so that we would be able to understand what we're being asked of.
Okay, so we will, go ahead, Councillor Bullock, sorry.
Well, I hope everyone that's listening in is happy to hear that people are being thought of what they have donated, and it is the time and the care has been taken to consider that and consider our community going forward and to preserve any of the items going forward. So we didn't forget about anybody. It's just taking time.
Okay, so we will put a game plan together next week, and we will definitely advertise and Anybody that's donated something that's not on the stay list will become first if they want it back, or if they want it to go someplace else. And then we'll look at how the rest of it gets dispersed with different organizations that have reached it.
Yes, and we have put out, I think, notice on our social media that if there's citizens in the town of Vegreville that know they have stuff at the museum and are interested in either A, getting it back, or what the future is of that, instead of contacting council, to please contact vegtown@vegreville.com. We have set up a file, and we're trying to ensure that all the communications go through there so we don't miss anybody. And then we have it in writing, we have exactly what they need, or what their item is, and we can go through all that as well.
Okay, so we have a plan, and we will be very considerate of families that have donated on going through the list. We'll check everything out, and we'll advertise that first. And again, I will repeat this, stuff that's on the stay list stays. And we would like to be able to showcase that in some of our facilities and what the future looks like at the event center with some of these displays staying there, so. Okay, well, I appreciate Minister Furr getting back to us and making a lot clearer of how we're gonna move forward. Okay, so next up, roundtable, and we'll start with Councillor Rudick.
Oh my goodness, sorry, it's so loud. I've mentioned a couple of the contacts that I've had with regards to the museum collection. But I've been at Alberta Seniors and Community Housing Association conference last week, and Alberta Munis and RMA this week. And one thing that keeps popping up, people are asking questions about, is the resolution that Town of Vegreville put forward a number of years ago about the closure of the Immigration Center. So as we move forward to the next stage in opening Prosperity Park and sharing the good news, I look forward to being able to dedicate some time and attention to sharing that good news with people, including some folks that had heard about us doing the emergency economic development workshops that we did with community members, business leaders, etc. So it's kind of interesting to be talking to people that are curious to see where things have landed and are familiar with Vegreville's story and our advocacy that was back 2017 and onwards, and they want to see the conclusion, the positive news that we can share with them. So I look forward to sharing that in the future when we maybe even when we attend Alberta Munis in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wawa.
Well, one of mine was the museum because I actually had two conversations on that, so that's good. The only other one was actually somebody had kind of been in part of some conversations with various people from town, so they actually reached out to me just talking about business supports. So I had already spoken with them, and I know that we have advertised these things on our various sites, but I think it's just bears repeating because I had this conversation, and they were talking about, the importance, especially in small and medium-sized communities, for business support, and that if you're supporting your businesses, they go from there. And what I did share is, of course, that has been one of our primary objectives and a major focus of the council. But they asked me specifically, interestingly enough, about if there, was any thought or consideration towards, tax breaks, tax incentives, incentive programs for businesses and whatnot. And when I actually went over a bunch of stuff, they didn't realize what had been done. So I just thought it was worth, sharing again that if there is anybody watching that had the same questions as the lady who reached out to me, I was able to tell her that, the efforts that it made when there was some regulation changes, that the town took that first opportunity to create an additional tax code for the smaller businesses, which actually a few years ago resulted in quite a significant drop on taxation for those businesses. And as well, I explained to her about some of the incentive programs and most recently the additional incentive program with the signage that was allowing for some of the businesses. And she actually thanked me just for the overview. But the interesting thing is, even though I know we're putting it out there, sometimes people still don't realize it. So I just wanted to bring that forward for anyone else who might have an interest. I think that it's important to know that the council has been doing exactly those things. They have literally been looking at options and ways to reduce taxes, to bring in additional business by working with industries and allowing, some incentives to move to the community, as well as providing business incentives and some kind of revitalization, which I think is great. And I think just encouraging people too, if you ever have questions about that, contact the admin, because they'll be able to give you everything. But when I spoke to one lady, she's like, wow, that's great and good to know. So it's just good on the admin for the information you guys have put out there, but let's always continue to share it, because people don't realize, or if they're not actively every day involved in it, sometimes they aren't necessarily looking at those announcements we make. So it's worth repeating sometimes. And that's all I got.
That's asked Manager Brown. Is on our website too, all this information, is that correct?
It is indeed, Your Worship. Also, we've taken from Director Lefebvre's department any businesses that we have on file that have given us an email address. We send them a monthly newsletter where we're advertising all of those incentives. And I certainly agree that it's one of those things that we have to continue to share and talk about. But there's also the end where it's all available as well online, and we're pretty aggressive in terms of how we get the information out there.
And I just would commend you, James, and your department, that I think it's out there and our businesses definitely do know about it. In fact, I think the people who sometimes don't know is the residents that aren't on the business side. Our business sector definitely has reiterated that they appreciated those updates as well. But it's always good for us to share it just with our general public, because the call we had, she was pretty, happy to actually hear it and said, oh, okay, well, that's really good to hear. So sometimes, I don't know, people probably don't tune in all the way to all the day-to-day stuff that we talk about. I'm sure sometimes our meetings get a little long, especially a lot of people will tune in more so to our council meetings versus our legislative meetings, which is where we have a lot of our discussion more so than what they see at the council. The ledge is where we do a lot of the brainstorming and reviewing and talking about impacts. So I guess we're telling everyone to tune into ledge meetings.
Get our ratings up, yes.
The ratings up.
Councilor Curtis.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Aaron Robert had reached out to me from Friends of A.L. Horton, so I'm glad that we got this on the discussion today to give him some answers back. And actually, kudos to you, Councilor Rawa. I didn't know that there's possibilities of having in-kind work go towards that. So hopefully we can make that work for them. I think that would be awesome. Second thing was around people are. Some of the residents who reached out about some of the derelict properties are now happy that some of them have been torn down. So trying to beautify up the town and get rid of these ones that are, aren't going to be able to be saved, and moving forward with that. So that's good to see. And no snow removal complaints, so that's good. That's all I got.
Hey, Councilor Bullock.
Well, for myself, basically, last week the St. Mary's hosted the provincial 1A boys basketball championships, and I was fortunate enough to be there to welcome everybody to town, and I felt very short. And most of the kids sitting down were up to my shoulders. So, and I heard it was well received over the weekend. People were talking about it. The restaurants definitely noticed. I heard some people commenting they had to wait a long time, and I couldn't even get in at one point to one of them. So it was really good for our town, that the championship here. So good to hear about that. Something somebody just asked me today, and I didn't even know that looks like some maintenance work or something going on our water tower down by the arena. I'm sure Director Flav could.
That'll be in his highlights.
Let us know about that.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
So, talking about incentives, you know that the provincial tournament received an incentive from the town of Vegreville. We encourage all school groups and nonprofits, if they can host some provincials, that we would definitely get behind it and support it. So. Councilor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, listening to the conversations around the table, I have nothing new. Most things I was kind of looking at was the houses have been torn down. We've got museum information now.
Well, you must be excited to get at this deaccessioning process.
I'm very excited because I would like to see us be able to move forward and actually start a new leaf on what's taking place out there. And it'll be easier to sleep at night when we now have the minister's blessing to move forward.
Excellent. Councillor Lemko, how are things over there?
Really well, Your Worship. I'd like to send out a thanks to the department that was responsible for cleaning up our derelict properties. It's been a long time in the making. I'm sure the house that was recently torn down is probably 5 years standing since the fire that. So it's nice to see those properties coming down and the work that's going on. And the other derelict properties in the queue, it's nice to see that we're cleaning up those items. I had a inquiry regarding the museum as well. Someone mentioned to me that if we're removing the items from the museum, it'd be nice to have the Mazankowski statue placed on Mazankowski's Way someplace so that his memories lasting a long time. So I think that's a worthy item to start thinking about. Also, the Ukrainian village reached out regarding the possibility of some items for their general store. And so if we're looking at that, it'd be nice to reach out and help them. Now, the last item I have is Men's Shed. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but you're going to find out right away. Men's Shed is a partnership that was led by the Vegreville Drug Society through their mental health group. It's working with members of the community and agencies. The purpose of Men's Shed is the primary role is to deal with physical and mental health and loneliness of men in the communities. The FCSS plays a small role. They're complementary, according to the presentation we had today by Julie. It's a complementary role. So they assist in space and that kind of stuff. They've received grants, Rural Health, RMH, Rural Mental Health Grant, in the neighborhood of $16,000 to help fund this operation. Also some Vegreville Cares Coalition grant of $1,000. So Men's Shed Canada comes from the idea that a backyard shed is a space where men often go to work on projects and escape life stresses. Somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to talk to. I attended an organizational meeting on March 4th, but I attended the March 13th luncheon at the Sunshine Club, where two gentlemen from Men's Shed Edmonton, two different sheds in the city, came and talked about what that has meant to this area. People who needed to come and deal with the life stresses and escapes. Now, the sheds, they could be anything. The people that are coming to Shed A or Shed B decide of what their shed looks like. So some people are fixing bicycles and wheelchairs in the communities and that kind of stuff. Some people are building woodworking projects. Some people are doing gardening for food for the food banks. It just depends on the climate of the man's in the shed. So there was about 20 individuals that attended the luncheon. Ages varied from mid-20s to older gentlemen, gray hair, and so, places to meet and discuss and to get together and do some things. Now, they've asked myself about the availability of some space at the museum. And I believe we'll be talking about that at the workshop, the possibility of helping them out. But I think it's a worthy cause. It'll have a place for many people in our community to go and make their shed whatever it can be. So That's my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I just want to congratulate St. Mary's and their provincial 1A over their basketball tournament. And I know that getting back to town on Friday and going to Crave and seeing the lineup for people that were going into the hotel side, and the other, I did talk to some people that were new to our community, came for this event, and they were at the Tower 2, which was pretty much full again. So it was, I'm saying probably over 900 people in our community, so. And it was nice to, and businesses are full, and again, we support these type of events, and it's just another way that we're help promoting our town and putting our best foot forward. As far as complaints, really not a lot. We were at Alberta Munis for a couple of days, and I would say that we got a lot of time with a lot of ministers over and I took full advantage of it, and I know that Councillor Curtis was out, and we were all beating the drum for Vegreville, and again, it's nice to hear positive things out in the municipal world about the direction we're going here, so it was very good. So that's my report. Next up, we have Director Highlights, and we're going to start with Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start with my Director Highlights. I had mentioned to Council previously about an ARMA program that's coming, the Alberta Recycling Management Authority, about doing a curbside pickup in our community. We've been able to work a date out with them. So they're going to be in the community between June 4th and June 6th, not July, June. And then we will go the following weekend on June 15th with our Household Hazardous Waste Roundup. And we do that for a reason. So the information will be coming out. They're sending us out information on the communities that they've picked. We are sort of a prototype for this year. And they're going to send out some pre-canned information they want us to use, not just invented on our own. That's about what they're collecting, curbside, what's coming, how it's going to work. And really starting June 4th, people can just start putting stuff out on their front sidewalk grass area in the front yards, as if you had front curb pickup. And that would be anything that qualifies in the program. So that would be anything that's e-waste, electronics, that's your paints, your tires, used oil, to put it out there. They do sometimes find that they're collecting things that aren't part of that program. So they will collect that if it may be hazardous. We wish that it wouldn't be, but if it does show up, we'll come pick it up separately and hang on to it. And that's why the following weekend after will be the Household Hazardous Waste Roundup. So we don't have to sit on it for more than about, 10 days. And then it's out the door with a different program. And they will come with trucks, trailers, and staff, and they will just keep cruising the town. So if you think that your neighbors had put something out and you didn't know what was going on, and all of a sudden it's gone, and you go talk to your neighbor and go, yeah, you just put this stuff out. For the 4th, 5th, and 6th, they'll continually tour the town. So as people learn and get educated by their neighbors, they can keep putting stuff out, and it'll continue to be picked up. Doing the last pickup on June 6th, the Thursday. So that's a program we're looking at. And the information that comes out is going to be good because electronic waste is massive now because we're still part of that pilot project. And if it plugs into your house, it's part of the program now. If it's a razor, if it's a microwave, if it's, as long as the Freon's out, they'll take air conditioners and things like that is all becoming part of the e-waste program. So anything you can think of in your home, it's not just computers and mouses anymore, electric guitars, I don't care what it is. If it plugs in for your residential use, it's part of e-waste. So we'll work with community engagement and economic development again to punch that message out in a big way. We're kind of excited. We've never done this before. We should be able to get a lot of this material out of basements and garages and things and get it recycled where it belongs, because this is not going to landfill. This is being recycled. So that's the good part. And their cost to us for doing the collection is zero. There's no charge for us. The only charge there may be is if we pick up some hazardous waste, there'll be a delivery or disposal charge the following week and a half later when we have a roundup. But so far, there's no cost to us, so that's great.
Should we let the public know right now that if they throw a mattress on their lawn, it'll stay there?
It will stay there. unless it's one that plugs in.
Okay.
From our next topic will be, we have now, Brianne Giles, the infrastructure coordinator, has completed the airport lease agreement. It's now a 7-year term. It has provisions for the town to default the agreement only if the leasee has defaulted one of the conditions, and we're able to really ramp up the conditions, so we have some meat behind it. The leasee has 60 days to get out of the clause if they want. This new lease agreement deals with things like if you have a building on the property and you don't pay your taxes to the county, it gives us something to do now, whereas before all we could do was phone and try and encourage them. So it was good that it was gone through. It was time for sure. Right down to if they're not making payment to us, about the steps that are involved where we actually could assume possession of the building on our leased land, things like that. So it's a good document, and I just have to bring it up to the CAO for a review, and because it's an agreement, I don't know if it needs to come to council. Just to let you know that I'd mentioned it before, because some of you have been contacted by a hangar owner and a lawyer, local legal counsel, so we're done with it now. It'll be going out to them to wrap that up. So we're glad to see that. Okay, and just to continue on, the council is definitely aware of everything, and so is the public, about, we're obviously expecting a far drier than normal spring, summer for this year. I know that council's aware that we are updating our regional emergency water plan for the community. That's ongoing. It is about wrapped up because the plan was fairly good before. It was just a lot of contacts, phone numbers, things that were outdated, some of them. But in doing some digging, what we're finding is that what's out there is drought plans. They're drought plans that are different than a regional emergency response plan. Obviously, the drought plan is long duration, slow and low impact. Things just gradually, slowly get worse. And it's a lot of working with the public, with public education on different ways you can conserve water. So we're creating this document. Brianne's about 65% of the way through, and this is going to supplement the emergency management water plan. So this is a supplement to it. This is for low and slow duration things. The emergency response plan is something that happens much quicker and faster. And even with the drought plan, when it gets to a point that, let's just say we're starting to accumulate levels where we're not gaining in our reservoir and stuff, then automatically the regional emergency response plan kind of comes and takes over. So this is like a prequel to the emergency response plan. I think it's a great idea. It gets it in the public's face about what we can do. This Friday is National Water Day. So we've been working with SEED as well, and they're gonna put out some information, and we're gonna start on this Friday because it's a recognizable day for water, and just start sending it out. So you're gonna start to see right from don't run the water when you brush your teeth, as we get closer down, that they realize that in the event that we are in a situation that warrants it based on triggers we've got preset, that we may have to go to odd even watering. What does that mean? How does it work? If we have to do this, so they're getting notified about it before it just bam hits the social media. This is how it works starting today. I want them to know, then think about it. These things could be coming or expect them to be coming. So so that's where we're at that. We've even been working with our Parks Department and pulling out information that providing them alternate water sources for watering flowers and plants and things. So we've got some, obviously, North Parkway drainage. We've got some boros and things that will ensure that we've got some access to on equipment that can handle taking slough dugout water and using that to water plants and trees and things in the community. Some of our equipment obviously can't handle that kind of water unless it's been filtered. So some of the more finicky stuff like sewer cleaners that need and have to work will still use some potable water. But we're just going to start that right off the hop. Not going to wait and see if it's warranted or if our levels are down. I talked with Manager Kuzmic, and we're just going to start with using this right off the hop for watering trees, flowers, and plants. It happens daily. Just make that a practice instead of waiting until there's a problem, right? So that's where we're at with that. And if you've seen some activity around the reservoir, that was our divers that went in to do the cleaning. They had, a week prior, had done our reservoir by Inotech. We also grouped together and had them do our other responses like Lavoy and different communities that we manage, so that when the divers come out, it's boop, doot, 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 it's all connected together, everybody got a little bit of break on price. And it's good to know that our reservoirs had some debris in it. Our ELRC, we call it, the main reservoir by bulk water, actually had some gravel in the bottom. I can only assume that's from previous repairs and things down the line. And then they open the line up and chug a bunch of water and it comes out. It damages nothing. There's places for it to sit down at the bottom. But it's good to get it out and clean them out. Really fine, small stuff. And a little bit of dusting silt at the reservoir by the pool, which has now been cleaned out. You'll see the activity there because you have to access that from the roof. So you'll see all the ladders and trucks and pumps and things out there. So that's been done and cleaned up as part of our 2024 budget, one of our items. If there's any questions.
We were talking about when we release wastewater from our lagoon system into the river. How often do we do it?
We do it once a year.
And what time of year do we do it?
We were doing it in October. We're changing now to do it more in June, July, just so it mixes better when there's water in the river. And remember, what we're releasing is improving the water quality in the river.
What kind of volumes are we talking?
Oh, tens of thousands of cubes. Millions of gallons.
Would it be clean enough to use in agricultural use, in spraying?
We, quite a few years ago, I'm trying to think of the year, we had a similar drought condition and the golf course was in real trouble. Everybody was in trouble. Farmers couldn't provide water for their cattle. And I know that I had worked with Alberta Environment and had an approval ready to go so that the golf course could irrigate and pump water from our last storage cell at the lagoon to the golf course and start dumping into their dugouts and things to hold water, the water traps. So the water was good enough for that then to grow grass. I think it would be a test someone agriculturally would have to do to take samples of our water. We've just released it, unfortunately, in October of last year, so it's slowly gaining, so it'll take there'll be more as the year goes on, is what I'm saying. But yes, there's a lot of water. We have to remember outside, I can't factor off the top of my head the evaporation rates and things in the lagoon, but on average, we're putting 500,000 gallons of water every day that goes into that lagoon system. So at the end, those ponds are millions and millions of gallons.
We just see other municipalities that are selling water from lagoon systems and stuff into fracking programs and stuff like that. And I just wonder what it would take to put a small filter system in front of ours and, and maybe we could potentially use it. I know sprayers today they're pretty fussy about just how fine any particles can be to go through the sprayer. But, if we're taking a real serious look overall, with climate change and where we're gonna be, it's a significant amount of water, and how would we get it into an agricultural usage and stuff like that? It's something that Councillor Barry brought forward, and him being a fish biologist, it was.
Well, part of it is as well as the discussion as to whether some of these uses of water, whether drinking water is what should be used. So certainly they used to draw water from sloughs, but that's probably not as clean as what's in our lagoon.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to keep it in mind and see if that was a source of water that could be used agriculturally. We don't really have an industry around us like fracking or et cetera that would quite likely want to use it, but I think that if we could try and gather some information on it, I think algae and zooplankton might be the only thing we'd have to screen out of it.
right, and as you know, the drier and lower the water levels get and the water temperature rises, the more of that you get in your water.
Yeah.
Again, it would probably be changed this season when we're releasing the water, because we know that farmers don't really spray a lot in the fall. But again, it's just another consideration that when we look at, just seeing other communities that have access to big fracks and frack companies, and they're doing well off that wastewater, and it's something that maybe for a small amount of filtering system or something that we could put in front of it to make it work, so.
I have been approached by some of the farmers already, obviously wanting to know about, you know, do I have a schedule? Do I have, what days are water on, water off? And obviously I can't answer that until I know what my supply is. And that's what I've already talked to council about as far as working with seed, so that we have real-time banner information on our website. Now, also what I say to them is it's important for them to look for alternate water sources as well. I mean, filtration out of dugouts and things is important. I mean, I don't know if it's as simple as a couple of filters on the inlet of your pump, and that does it fine enough so that you can spray. I hope so, because it'll solve a lot of problems. But I know what you're saying, they want that potable water because it's 100% guaranteed, nothing in it. But I've mentioned to them after they ask, I always say, you know, it's important that you look also for alternative services and pumping and filtering abilities so that you can pull water, or start pulling now and storing it if you have the ability and things to do. So we're trying to have them think about it ahead of time instead of, you know, all of a sudden things shut down, I need to spray this morning, now what do I do? Just to plan ahead a little bit, if that's a thing they can do.
Good. Any other questions of Director Lefebvre? Good. Thank you very much. Next up, CAO highlights.
Okay. In the last 2 weeks, I attended the following, the county RCMP town hall that they hosted out in Lavoie. I went with CAO Potoporosny, and it's interesting. The county residents are just as concerned with property crimes as the residents here in town. That's number one. They're definitely not immune to it, just being out in the country. In fact, fuel is a huge loss for them, so. Attended the Refocusing Healthcare session with Councillors Rudick and Barry. That was put on by Alberta Health at the Pomeroy last Friday. It was really informative. I attended an intermunicipal collaboration framework review session put on by Municipal Affairs. There's a few nuggets that came out of that sound really interesting. And then, of course, I attended the Alberta Muni Spring Leaders Caucus with Council. I worked a shift at the Chamber of Commerce Career Day. It was very nice to see neighboring communities, their high schools showed up, and it was, at one point, it was extremely busy there in the afternoon, so that was nice. I actually have in my hands our ACP Regional Recreational Feasibility Study grant contract, so that'll be sent off this week, signed and sent off this week. As councillors had alluded to in their reports, the fire damaged property demolition at 4822 54th A Avenue has been completed, and they are now working at the demolition of the fire damaged property at 5521 51st Street. So that should be completed. Oh, today. Okay, even better. So that'll be done. And on Monday, March 11th, municipal enforcement along with the RCMP focused on traffic within the town. In this 6-hour session, there were 41 traffic violations issued for a total fine value of $8,407. 21 of those were seatbelt violations, and only 11 of those were speeding violations. So it was a good day, and we plan to do more.
School zones and parks are nice to go to too, because I notice by the ODR, people are getting revved up when they're leaving town, going fairly fast, and probably get me once in a while because, you know, I get over 30, I get to 36, and then, but.
Yeah, and the traffic sign that was on the golf course road there, like by the ODR, we're having battery issues with it, so we're hoping to get that. It should be fixed here fairly soon and back up and in a new location. And the one by the arena is doing well.
We're collecting some data there.
Yeah, and I notice, because I drive to that end of town, and I notice the traffic on that road is a little bit slower coming from that four-way stop.
It helps.
Yeah. It really does.
Okay, thank you so much for your report. Just so everybody knows, that March the 29th, the Friday, the office is closed, as well as April 1, Easter Monday, the office is closed. Okay, is there any other business of council? Well, seeing none, I adjourn the meeting at 5:42. Yeah, not.